Some of the best specs on patch 11.1 PTR as of now. I was surprised. Oh, what are the best specs? Now, we know there's a ton of class reworks coming in with 11.1, like other big patches. You know, they always bring the big class reworks. I've seen Marksmanship getting a ton of reworks, Monk, Demon Hunter perhaps getting some as well. There could be a lot of changes, and there actually will be a lot of changes. That's a guarantee. But who's going to be on top when all the changes settle in? Let's see what Marcellian has to say about the best specs in 11.1.
Glad you are here because we need to talk about some of the best specs to play in 11.1, and dude, I was surprised to find fun in some specs I haven't played in years. Well,
Man,
since
that
beta
rogue tier
test, I
set.
tested all of them, but really played as mains and alts in years. And without too much delay, Windwalker, dude. I've been generally enjoying Monk for quite a while, and I don't know if it's because of the new dungeon or the new tier set, but I was enjoying this so much more than last I remember. Maybe because over the release of The War Within and moving into the 11.1 patch, it has been polished to a point where it feels smoother and smoother each time when you play it. Not sure if I was playing the spec right, but in the chaos of the new dungeon with shit going off left and right, it felt like I had damage and cooldowns every time something happened. The two charges of Storm Earth and Fire coupled with Zuen and Strike of the Windlord gave me some flexibility in how I approached the packs, whether I stacked them all together.
I'm happy for monks. I'm happy for monks because I feel like a lot of times they get left behind, honestly. Monks, for some reason, always feel like the redheaded stepchild, and I've never played monk, but I've empathized with them. Because I feel like a lot of times they're lacking in certain spots. Brewmaster, how's it doing? Windwalker, how's it? Mistweaver, yeah, Mistweaver's done, probably of the three, has done the best in the past. But I'm glad. Windwalker looking good. That's good for monks, bringing some of that back. Hopefully people can actually play it, and it's a fun class to play.
Then just use
Pro
Strike of the
streamer,
Windlord
yeah.
for every other pack. It just felt really nice. The tier set feels better than with other specs for some reason, since I can start a pack with Fists of Fury, crank up that buff high, and then just
Monks have been strong for a long time. I think Mistweaver's been strong for a long time. I don't know, Brewmaster, I think maybe it had its time in the light, but I feel like it did fall off for quite a while, and Windwalker's just been, I feel like, erratic. We just looked at DPS charts yesterday. Windwalker wasn't in the top. They weren't even in the top 6, I thought. So it's had its time in the sun, but I feel like a lot of times it gets left behind.
Go ham with kicks and spins until I consume it, coupled with an inevitable dragon
At least in
punch that
DPS.
gives me a guaranteed dance of Chi-G proc, and the combat loop of explosive AoE feels very rewarding. It also helped that the damage was actually pretty good as well. They also announced recent buffs to the tier set, but also to slicing winds, the old Plunderstorm ability that made it into the talent as a capstone. I was already playing the Strike of the Windlord talent all the way down to the capstone, so maybe this will make it viable enough to be picked, and if it gets picked, that will be some dope upgrade to the rotation in general gameplay. A lot of people are interested in the marksmanship changes and whether it is good to play or not. We already made a video about it,
What the hell was that machinima? That was wild. Marksmanship Hunter is looking absolutely phenomenal. A lot of people are excited about it. The pet thing being added, I personally don't think marksmanship needs pets. It's kind of weird to me, but the community asked for it, at least some of the community, and they're going to get it. But overall, marksmanship, the reworks for it and everything, and then you add Dark Ranger reworks on top of that with all the new, animations and everything. I think it's going to be a very popular spec in 11.1.
You can check for more details, but I do have to say that for the first time in maybe 7 years, Marksmanship is officially the most fun hunter spec for me. I normally am a survival hunter that occasionally dabbles into beast mastery, but the MM rework brings it home, baby. It brings home the cheese, dude. The new and upgraded interactions between precise shots and the rest of your rotation gives it a weave feel that you were sometimes ignoring before. A lot of core mechanics for Marksmanship are actual systems now and not just solitary passives. You don't just get precise shots after aim shot and that's it. Now these further reduce cooldowns, extend other cooldowns, proc the new Spotter's Mark, and so much more. Streamline is also the same, where it has more interactions with other parts of your kit. True Shot is a more engaging cooldown with gameplay changes thrown here and there, and maybe some of the most impactful moments have been around Explosive Shot. I thought that this ability cannot be more interesting after Survival was shooting 3 at a time with its capstone. But nah, Marksmanship does it better, where you can fire explosive shot and manually detonate it with an aim shot for more damage.
Oh damn,
it generates
that
streamline,
sounds cool.
it can have its own cooldown reduced, and so much more. For real, Marksmanship feels like everything is connected now, and how you build and play these synergies can change your output and what you actually do in certain combat situations. A much needed rework with a dope gameplay outcome. Marcellin also dabbled in some surprising specs that he found worthy enough to become his next main. First on the list, a healing spec.
Oh my god, Holy Priest. I mean, look, if Blizzard wants people to actually heal and tank in this game, they got to make it fun. Because I'll tell you right now, they've really sucked the fun straight out of the pelvis of tanking and healing. It's gone. Because they squished the shit out of tanks and they made healing very demanding because of what they did to tanks. So what happened? A lot of people just gave up. They're just like, I'm not going to play healing or tank anymore. Go check the Mythic Plus boards. Go try to queue for one of those, see if you can get a tank or a healer. It's at an all-time low. So I think a rework to Holy Priest, yeah, needed for sure. Hopefully, as he's saying, it's fun.
How about that? Holy Priest has been cooking in the PTR with some cool talent changes that spice up the gameplay. First up, Apotheosis feels much more impactful and you get more uptime. With the talent Divinity, your next 3 heal or Prayer of Healing casts are instant, which further makes the cooldown much more impactful. This was very noticeable when you already had Lightweaver charges, popped Apotheosis, and had instant heals that were topping even tanks. Watching him play it kinda makes me a bit jealous since I was also healing prior to this and have to say, didn't enjoy it as much as he did. Oh yeah, and Lightweaver, my personal favorite capstone, has been buffed to now stack to 4 times and affect Prayer of Healing as well. Here we have a little cope since one of Holy's biggest issues is AoE, particularly 5-man consistent healing for those high damage outputs that were present in Floodgate. It might need more juice for Prayer of Healing to start topping people and will likely be relegated to spot healing until then, but man, are those heals fat. It's old school, impactful healing throughput that just makes healing so much more enjoyable, especially when you go prepared with an Apotheosis buff Divinity and Lightweaver and casually just lay on hands like heals on people left and right. The nerd
so it sounds mostly buffed, which is really what it needed, especially Priest. Priest did need the buff. They got to deal with so much when it comes to, you know, dispelling things, interrupting things, and then obviously healing everybody at the same time. So all these buffs sound like they were much needed.
Got me excited to play this as I am writing this script, and Holy Priest is my least played and favorite healer. He also went back to his roots and played some Rogue. Outlaw in particular has some really cool gameplay loops with the improved sleight of hand that now can also give you 5 rolled bones buffs. Over the course of the dungeon, you will notice getting 5 rolls way more often with this talent, and if you ever played Outlaw before, you know how good this feels. Marcellin and I are big Hidden Opportunity fans when you played with Crackshot, and he actually played this very build on the PTR and did alright. Outlaw still has some tuning issues when compared to other specs, which is true for live as well.
Yeah, but Outlaw's doing great in terms of damage. I mean, we looked at it. I said we are now in the era of Shaman and Rogue. Right now, Shamans and Rogues, if you look at Rogues, like all 3 of their specs are they're very good. Hunters are up there too. Shamans, Hunters, and Rogues. If you're playing any of those 3 right now doing DPS, you're probably doing great because all of their specs are very viable. Outlaw Rogue, to me, has always looked like the most fun one because, you know, it's piratey and all that, and you guys know I appreciate that stuff. And I have to say, Rogue's tier set, man, the best looking tier set of them all. It's an unbelievable one. So Outlaw also be looking good for 11.1. I think a lot of people are going to play Rogue in this next patch.
But if we are talking gameplay and how fun and rewarding it is, it's kind of hard for it to lose out to other specs. And if you want to be more meta, you can still play Keep It Rolling with Crackshot and likely do even better. Not sure what the Season 2 build will be in the end, but having 2 different playstyles that perform really well is a big plus. A bigger plus would be if the tier set would buff between the eyes instead of dispatch, which would put more love into the Hidden Opportunity playstyle, keeping the builds closer to each other in performance, builds and offering more variety in playstyle. With everyone and their mom playing Assassination, Marcellian wants you to know that it's okay to play Subtlety as well. And
there
just to make sure
I said it. He's talking about Subtlety now too. You got Ass Subtlety and Outlaw. They're all very good. Honestly, you could pick Rogue, switch your spec up every week, and be still probably one of the best DPS.
Understand, damage is likely going to change by the time
Blizzard's just loving rogues right now.
But Sub actually was cranking on the testing server where we were on, and tuning has been Subtlety's biggest weakness in the last few months since the gameplay is as fucking stellar as always. Maybe the best argument in favor of Subtlety over many other melees, if not melee in Season 2, is that the tier set is less of an asshole and you have generally less RNG and more uptime of it, at least in theory. But it felt that way in practice as well. Your Shadow Dance, making sure you don't drop winning streak, is a good argument in favor of Sub when it comes to you wanting to play with a tier set that just doesn't randomly take your buffs away. Fun gameplay, big numbers, a dope looking tier set, and decent games from its effect is what you can expect from Subtlety, at least until we know for sure all the numbers. A good mix in all of this melee madness is a tank, and Bear is my poison and what I would recommend people give a go in Season 2. With likely more Druid changes on the horizon, Bear becomes a big...
I mean, right now, the only tanking spec that doesn't need a rework really is Prot Pally. Prot Pally is just in a great spot. All the other tanking specs need some love, including Blood DK. We need some love. So Guardian Druid, I guess he's saying, looks like a pretty fun one to play.
A recommendation as a fun tank to play if you are tired of Prot Paladins left and right. I tanked the new dungeon on a plus 12 and felt like a fucking god on some pools where I got my party killed. I managed to tank the packs for a good amount of time until everyone got back to me and ended up killing the whole thing in the end. Bear got a new talent in Ursoc's warding that gives you magic damage reduction based off of the physical damage reduction from your armor, aka spam Iron Furs and you take less magic damage. Yoda made a video where he talked about this not being very impactful, and in all honesty, the numbers feel pretty low still. So it was either this or just Bear feeling tanky in general that contributed to me going into this key, and for the first time since Prot Paladin destroyed the meta, I actually felt good and enjoyed tanking. I'm not saying Bear is the best tank or the next Prot Paladin, but sometimes you just need to have a chill time, feel invincible, and have some fun. And this was before the changes to Raise they recently announced. Not sure how much this impacts the spec, but if it's just the first change of many to come, I am all here for some Bear love, baby. From one Druid spec.
Make tanking great again. I mean, that's all we need. We just need tanks to be good. And they've been in a tough spot lately, other than Prot Pally.
To another, I have only one thing to say. Woo! Feral going...
Oh, Feral.
Okay, now, relax. Yeah. We all know that if Ferals accidentally do...
Feral probably got the biggest rework of all the pre-11.1 specs. Feral literally went from bottom of the board to now, what, if you're looking at single target damage, I mean, they're top third. They're top third at least now. And Feral Druid was in the gutter, man. Nobody was playing Feral. It was probably one of the least played specs in the entire game.
Servant, we have a realm
Embodied.
to destroy.
Thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad for Feral Druid, honestly. I kind of miss seeing them, the little cat people running around. And I think we're going to see a lot more of an 11.1 because they're in a really good spot.
More damage than the tank, they will get nerfed. But until then, I will enjoy life and sink my teeth into anything that moves. I think Feral is in the same boat as Subtlety. It plays well and it's super fun on its own. It just feels under 90% of the time. It doesn't really get much changes in 11.1. The class tree is getting some reworks, giving you some fewer bad talent nodes, which feels great, but we have more mandatory good nodes, leaving you with almost the same amount of flexibility as before. Good. Granted, I can get Innervate now without feeling like I am trolling, so I won't complain anymore. The tier set focuses on Feral's best mechanic and talent, Apex Predator, and was also recently buffed from what you are seeing in the gameplay footage right here. Outside of that, what I really enjoyed about Feral, and it feels like a minor thing that would never really matter, is the movement speed. As a melee spec, having to dodge mechanics, especially the ones in Floodgate, is a pain more exacerbated by the range nerfs on your melees. Feral is one of the only melees that has passive movement speed that really makes a difference when repositioning around the packs, keeping up with the tank when moving around, on top of being a druid that can just break out of any root type mechanics. Feral just feels like a smooth soap wash on your face in the morning after a rough night's sleep. Possibly the main contender with Windwalker for me. Hey, we need some more caster love up in here. I got you, bro. Warlock. Holy hell, have I changed my mind on Demonology Warlock.
Demonology was hurt in terms of DPS this whole first season. Interesting, and I don't know what the buffs are looking like for Demonology, but they need buffs because they were towards the bottom. They were, I think, the worst of the 3 Warlock specs, and all in all, the Warlock specs were really mid-tier to bottom tier in terms of damage. So Demonology looking good. Oh, that's great for them.
Not only is it doing hella good damage, which kind of matters since in Dungeons Warlock is one of the worst classes to bring, so might as well bring the damn, but the tier set is actually good. I feel like it fell under the radar when the team at Blizz was making devs design boring sets. Having your Hands of Gul'dan proc the bites of all of your Dreadstalkers, which with your 2 set you spawn more of, is actually really
Sounds
fun.
Interesting.
Not only does it put more impact onto your Hands of Gul'dan, but the bite and the debuffs you associate with it from your talents really makes it feel like you have a tier set on you. It still is one of those where you play the same, but at least it matters now. I have been going on for months and months not talking about Destruction, but not anymore. Destruction isn't getting reworked or major changes or any changes whatsoever. The tier set is a good damage boost, but mostly passive, leaving you room to play whatever talents you want. If you play the good talents, you end up doing some of the most explosive damage out of all of the specs so far, which I have to say that after juggling all the dungeon mechanics and rotational procs from so many other DPS specs, it damn well feels good to just play a no BS spec like Destro. That doesn't...
Destro Warlock too, he's saying. Wow, so I mean, in general, he feels like Warlocks are going to be looking much better in 11.1, which is good because they were in a shit spot, I'm telling you. Besides, you know, their utility of having a portal and a summons and shit, I didn't really care to bring a Warlock into raid. No Demo has the shittiest kick in the game. You need to actively do damage to the target before you can stun them, and you don't kick, which in the current state is total shit. Yeah, not having a kick, the way things work right now, is shit. I agree, Embodied. That sounds absolutely horrible. Affliction is the weakest. It needs love. Yeah, it does. So far he mentioned Destro, then he mentioned Demo. I don't know if he's going to mention Affliction, but Destro and at least like these two are getting some love because in general I feel like Warlocks have been on the tail end of this whole expansion.
Try to be fancy and just burns as many enemies as possible. Sometimes that's all you need in life. Unless that is the last spec for today, Enhancement Shaman, which is one of the most controversial.
I said it, man. Hunter, Rogue, Shaman. Very interestingly that I said this just the other day, and all 3 were featured in this video. Enhancement Shaman looking amazing. All in all, Resto Shaman's even doing good out here. It's a good time to play Shaman, basically.
Controversial specs in the game at the moment. It's one of the best melee DPS specs now, it deals some of the highest damage on the PTR, and got the most amount of visual upgrades out there since this expansion released. As opposed to Feral and Windwalker, you have a lot more builds you can go for that actually change your rotation and playstyle to a significant degree. So much so that I am still puzzled as to how this spec can exist in the game with so many other classes feeling like they are playing classic WoW compared to Enhancement. I played Totemic with the new talent that resets the cooldown on Sundering.
Right, Totemic got reworked.
Dude, I think I found my new main. Only thing keeping me back is the potential nerfs it might get since I have the good spec PTSD syndrome with the devs lately. Whenever something is coming out of the cracks of the game, the Blizz Fun Police hammer has a habit of swinging down on its head.
Basically, the way specs work and classes work in terms of power is you don't want to be the nail that sticks up. You don't want to be that spec that's overly good, because that usually means the nerf hammer's coming your way. You kind of want to be in that top 3 or maybe number 1, but just by a slim margin. When you're number 1 by a big margin like Enhancement was for a while, you know that nerf hammer's coming.
Hopefully not. Hopefully we can use Enhancement as an example for a new standard in spec design, because this shit right here is where you get your money's worth from Blizz. And if you want to know if Season 2 is going to be addressed by the devs and made more fun, you need to check this video out and see what their opinions on the whole Mythic Plus situation is.
Interesting. Yeah, we watched that video. Look, Season 2 can't be worse than Season 1. That's the positive. Right, and I guess it looks like these specs are going to be really good. If I summarize the video in any way, I'm telling you guys, Hunter, Rogue, Shaman. Play any one of those three in any spec of those three, and you're gonna have a good time. It's they're all in good spaces. Nice video from Mercelian.